It's a racing series without equal. A series on the move. A series looking back on a year like no other in its long history. This year, it yielded so many stories. It prompted so much excitement and aroused so many emotions.
The best racing I ever had in my life.
The 2018 DTM season was motorsport at its best. 18 of the world's best drivers fought for the crowning glory in touring car racing. A fight over 20 races. A fight for every centimetre that was only decided in a thrilling season finale. The 32nd DTM season was packed with spectacular moments, exclusive one-offs, and moving farewells. After 30 years, Mercedes bowed out of the DTM with a triumphant treble. Besides the teams and manufacturers' titles, Gary Paffett clinched the 2018 DTM Championship.
And here he is now, the new DTM champ 2018, Gary Paffett. It was so thrilling to see you win this season. How does it feel? Has it sunk in yet?
Not yet. No, I think it will take a few weeks actually. I just feel incredible. You know, we've had such a great season, really such a great season, but we've had some tough races. Yeah, coming off the back of Mazzano, scoring no points after having a massive lead in the championship, and really the last half of the year has been a real fight. You know, René has just been smashing it. You know, he's won the last 6 races, and we've just had to try and get as close to him as we can. He's been unbeatable at times, but you know, he's had a bit of luck, we've had a bit of bad luck, and it was a hard fight. It was a really hard fight, and we had to dig deep. And we've had a great car, great package, great team. You know, the team have worked so hard. The pit crew, you know, we all deserve this. The whole crew really deserve this, and the whole Mercedes-Benz team have worked so hard in their final year in the DTM to get the title back.
Absolutely, you did a phenomenal job. Thank you so much, Gary Paffett. And talking about ups and downs, let's look at the highlights of the last 6 months of DTM 2018.
The first port of call on the DTM calendar, Hockenheim. Where else? It's a tradition, and the fans flock to the circuit. Also to witness a DTM legend's last 2 races, Matthias Ekström, 2-time champion and an Audi driver for 17 years, says goodbye. An emotional farewell. The winners of the first 2 races in 2018 are Gary Paffett and Timo Glock. The first formation lap of the season, the drivers racing past the coveted trophy with the fans in the stands shortly before the start, and things go well for the pole sitter at the start. Gary Paffett retains the lead, followed by Marco Wittmann and Timo Glock, and Lucas Auer is waiting to pounce from P4. So Lucas Auer then charging his way up the order. The next in his target sights was Timo Glock, and this would be for P3 in the race. Then the chase was on to Marco Wittmann and into the hairpin. Marco Wittmann losing that P2 place to Lucas Auer. So a great move on the inside sees the Mercedes go ahead of the BMW, and then the chase was on to the race leader because the Austrian was not going to be stopped, and he wanted to lead the race. To do so, he needed to get past Gary Paffett, and with this brilliant overtake, he managed to do that. So it was Mercedes P1, P2, then BMWs P3 and P4. So Lucas Auer turned in to the pit lane for his mandatory pit stop with no tyre warmers allowed. That meant that Lucas Auer would return to the track with cold tyres. And the pursuers, Gary Paffett and Timo Glock, with tyres up to temperature. It meant that Lucas Auer was always going to be vulnerable. And sure enough, his Mercedes brand mate, Gary Paffett, on the Parabolica heading up towards the hairpin, would retake the lead of the race. In fact, got the overtake done even before they got to the hairpin. Following that overtake, the order would remain the same, with Gary Paffett P1, Lucas Auer P2, and Timo Glock P3, as Gary Paffett celebrated his 21st DTM race win as the checkered flag fell.
You know, I made a good start. I was happy with that. Lucas was a bit quicker in the first stint, so he got past, but you know, we waited as long as we could for the pit stop to stay in front of Timo, and then the car in the second stint was incredible. You know, we just managed to pull a big gap and cruised home.
It wasn't only the drivers that got soaked in champagne on the first podium of 2018. Timo Glock will stay in front right at the start of race 2, followed by René Rast P2, Joel Eriksson dropping way down the order. Lucas Auer with a jump start though moves from P5 to P3, and in slow motion at the start of the race you can see here quite clearly that Lucas Auer does make a jump start and will incur a 5-second pit stop penalty for so doing. At this point, of course, he is completely unaware of that and makes a good overtake against René Rast, and therefore on track Lucas Auer moves up to P2. The two Mercedes-Benz drivers running P4 and P5 are Paul di Resta and Gary Paffett, and it wouldn't be long before Gary Paffett would pursue Paul di Resta and up the inside goes through to pick up that P4 place. And that overtake wasn't the only one. There was more to come as Gary Paffett pursued René Rast. And through the parabolic goes past the Audi driver, so now Gary Paffett is up to P3 in the race. Timo Glock would come into the pit lane for his pit stop, and Gary Paffett would get past Lucas Auer and therefore pick up the P2 place. Then it was the turn of Gary Paffett for his mandatory stop. And when Gary Paffett came out, he would be vying for the lead of the race with Timo Glock. And what then ensued was one of the most talked about battles of the season between Timo Glock and Gary Paffett. One way, then the other. Into the hairpin they go. These cars could not be closer together. It was a phenomenal fight between the two of them, and the tensions on the pit walls of BMW and Mercedes-Benz were almost as great as the tensions inside the cars, as Gary Paffett and Timo Glock for lap after lap battled between BMW and Mercedes-Benz, and the fans were on their feet or with their head in hands because the excitement was absolutely electric. Eventually, Timo Glock would do enough to stay ahead of the Mercedes-Benz, and then Gary Paffett would come under pressure from Mike Rockenfeller, who wanted to join the party as well. Mike Rockenfeller putting himself into that P2 position, so at the checkered flag it would be Timo Glock that would take the race win from Mike Rockenfeller and Gary Paffett.
This was awesome! Best f***ing racing I ever had in my life! The best f***ing racing in Mercedes, you should not leave this championship.
After a monumental fight, the respect between Gary Paffett and Timo Glock was clear to see.
I did everything I could to win that race. You know, I easily could have sat there in second and easily got second. I finished third in the end, so I lost the place because of the fighting, but what a race. I mean, the TV time was worth it. It was incredible.
This was insane. And I just can say, and this will I will say all day long, why Mercedes is leaving this championship. This is the show, this is racing, this is what we showed today. They should not leave.
Timo Glock, race winner, and it's tight at the top in the championship. And after the rousing opener, the DTM travels to the Lausitzring. Timo Glock arrives as overall leader, but Mercedes build on their impressive record at the circuit. Eduardo Mortara and Gary Paffett top the podium in Eastern Germany. And there would be drama at the start of race 1. Nico Müller stalls his engine. He's stationary. Audi driver Jamie Green, too late to see it, crashes into the rear of Nico Müller's car.
I didn't even know there was a parked car, so I was so close to René because I had a good start that I had no time to react when he swerved to miss the car, and then I just hit it. You know, I didn't even have time. I didn't even see it.
Well, despite the extensive damage to Nico Müller and Jamie Green's car, both the drivers are perfectly okay. On the rolling restart, no changes of position at the lead of the field. Lucas Auer retains the lead, followed by Bruno Spengler and Philipp Eng. And then, all of a sudden, DTM champion René Rast Audi is off the track, completely destroyed. Jamie Green, who has already retired, is absolutely horrified. This is the footage from on board. Here comes the impact. René Rast barrel rolls through the air, but is absolutely fine.
I'm very good, actually. I didn't feel anything from the crash. It was very soft landing. Just my right elbow hurts a little bit, but I'm very good, so I'm happy to be in a good condition.
To analyze it, I don't know. I was only a little bit shocked and happy that at least he jumped out of the car, but a big compliment to the guys who made the regulation. The cars are very, very strong.
So then the second restart, it's Bruno Spengler versus Lucas Auer, and Lucas Auer with the Mercedes-Benz ahead of the BMW as they make their way through turn number 1. This, though, was Eduardo Mortara under pressure from the BMW driver Philipp Eng, and Philipp Eng goes through on the car of Eduardo Mortara. Edo, though, would fight back on the start-finish straight then just a few moments later and gets the job done even before they get into turn number 1. Edo Mortara back ahead of the BMW driver Philipp Eng, who now is under pressure from Timo Glock. And Timo Glock reels in the number 25 car and then goes through on the inside. So Timo Glock picks up P2 in the race. Edo Mortara will win the race, followed by Timo Glock and Philipp Eng. It is the Italian's first triumph in a Mercedes since he joined the manufacturer 2 years ago.
The team did an incredible job. Strategy was mega. Was struggling the first laps after my pit stop, but I could gain back the lead, and I knew that when I was in front, then it was like tougher, let's say, for the others. Very happy.
Thousands of fans flocked to the Lausitzring on Sunday for race number 2, and Philipp Eng then puts himself in P1 ahead of Pascal Wehrlein and the hard-charging Gary Paffett as well. Almost 3 abreast as they go into turn number 1. Gary Paffett defending from the 2-time DTM champion Marco Wittmann. Now this was Pascal Wehrlein's attack on Philipp Eng, which would go horribly wrong for him because not only does he not gain P1, he actually loses P2 to Gary Paffett. As he attacked, he became vulnerable to Gary Paffett, and we can see again from being on board with Gary Paffett exactly how he made that stick. Under investigation, Philipp Eng for forcing Pascal Wehrlein to leave the track as Gary Paffett goes through on the BMW driver and picks up the lead of the race. Not many moments later, Gary would turn into the pit lane for his mandatory pit stop, and whilst that pit stop was underway, his pursuers choosing to remain out on track. This was Timo Glock passing Philipp Eng in the battle for P6 in the race. And Timo Glock going through on the inside, and Jamie Green would be next in the target sights of Timo Glock, and sure enough, going into turn number 1 on the inside, Timo Glock puts himself ahead of the Audi driver Jamie Green. So the 2005 DTM champion then heads towards his 22nd win in his DTM career, ahead of Marco Wittmann P2, Pascal Wehrlein P3.
Really happy with the double podium. I'm also happy for Pascal, who is now on his first podium since his return to DTM. Gary obviously winning the second race in this season already. Is a good position in the championship now.
And after 2 dramatic races at Lausitzring, it remains tight at the top, just 1 point between Timo Glock and Gary Paffett in the Drivers' Championship. Former German boxer Axel Schulz is called upon to make the trophy presentations. Gary receives the race winner's trophy and then goes to the front of the podium to salute his fans and team. Budapest is the 3rd appointment on the calendar. The Hungaroring, the venue for 2 unforgettable DTM races. Paul di Resta and Marco Wittmann come out on top in Hungary. Race 1 pole sitter is Paul di Resta, and he holds on to that P1 place as they head into the right-hander, which is turn number 1. He's followed by the Audi driver Nico Müller and Lucas Auer in P3 trying to go around the outside of Nico Müller. They go side by side as they head into the downhill sequence, which contains turns 2 and 3. Trying to make his way up the order is Gary Paffett, who, through the inside now, gets past Daniel Juncker-Deyer and picks up the P5 place. On lap 10, the race leader, Paul di Resta, comes in for his mandatory pit stop, and when he rejoins the race, his pursuer, Lucas Auer, will be able to get by him with relative ease. Paul di Resta, of course, on cold tyres. Lucas Auer's tyres are completely up to temperature, and sure enough, as they run downhill, he is easily able to get past the car of Paul di Resta. Now, just 1 lap later, and Nico Müller comes in for his mandatory pit stop. Now, this could be a photocopy of the previous overtake from Lucas Auer, but actually, Lucas Auer is advantaged by Nico Müller, who locks up. Really easy to do on cold tyres, and even before they reach turn number 2, Lucas Auer has put himself ahead of the Audi driver Nico Müller, who now will be under threat from Paul di Resta. Gary Paffett continuing to work his way up the order, overtaking Bruno Spengler here for P10. Now, in replay, let's take a look at this, because it's Paul di Resta overtaking Lucas Auer to reclaim his lead. Now, it was made really easy for Paul di Resta as Lucas Auer didn't heavily defend. Was it perhaps a team order? It's the 9th DTM victory for Paul di Resta, ahead of Lucas Auer P2, Nico Müller is P3.
You can't ask for more to qualify in pole, especially here, and then to transfer it into obviously a race win. It was close, obviously. Pit stop wasn't the best, but the boys have given me a great car to drive.
Great podium celebrations then for Paul di Resta, Lucas Auer and Nico Müller. Down on the grid then, ahead of race number 2, Gary Paffett proving that he's not only a great shot in a racing car, but he does all right with the T-shirt gun as well. Start of race 2 then, it was an all-Mercedes affair from qualifying with Lucas Auer on pole position. He's able to retain that P1 position ahead of Pascal Wehrlein, Paul di Resta, Edo Mortara and Gary Paffett trying to go around the outside of Eduardo Mortara, which quickly becomes the inside as they continue to run downhill. And a touch from Nico Muller on Timo Glock sends him spinning around. Pascal Wehrlein getting past Lucas Auer for the lead, but the first raindrops are beginning to fall. And what an effect they would have, because Lucas Auer will turn into the pit lane. And on the wet concrete surface, he will lose control of the car. 2 race marshals can't avoid it. Horrifying moments.
I knew I have to be very careful, obviously with dry tires in the rain, but once I turned in the proper pit lane, I was the best passenger. It was ice skating. On ice skating you have more grip, but it's no worth commenting now. It's just about how the people are, and it's really bad. It's really bad.
Lucas was really affected. The ambulance was in the pit lane. The injured persons receive immediate treatment and are taken to hospital. Nobody is in a life-threatening condition. But on lap 8, the mayhem continues. Eduardo Mortara, too, can't stop his car in the pit box despite warnings and yellow flags, and Bruno Spengler's stop was dangerous as well. The remaining cars on track are stationary as the race is suspended. Uli Fritz from Mercedes-Benz to the left of your picture, Dieter Gas from Audi to the right of the picture in discussions then about the weather conditions. Ironically, the track dries out really quickly. Pascal Wehrlein opens a gap up front at the restart. Gary Paffett losing out because he is on wet weather tyres.
After the restart, I thought it was wetter than it was, and honestly, if you're a whole pit stop down on most of the field, you have to try something. So we tried to go on the wets, it didn't work.
Marco Wittmann will win from Timo Glock P2, Philipp Eng is P3, and Marco Wittmann then is congratulated by his team in Parc Fermé.
From 14 I didn't expect much, and from the pace yesterday we had, to be honest, I didn't thought about a single point, and sometimes you need to have as well a bit of the luck.
Celebrations are loud and proud on the podium. Marco Wittmann, Timo Glock and Philipp Eng. It's a clean sweep for BMW. In the Drivers' Championship, Timo Glock now on 90 points, Gary Paffett 79, Paul di Resta 67.